What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hope everybody out there is doing well, and welcome back to the Okie Patriot 76 podcast. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. We have Luke back on the show to talk about the Derek Chauvin trial, and pretty much it was the whole episode. We talked about some things at the beginning, answered some questions, but this was a good episode, and I want everybody to check it out, and it's really worth listening to because we had an honest discussion about Derek Chauvin and talked about what police can do to prevent these things from happening and just the whole thing, the whole, you know, thing. And I think, I kind of have a problem, and I didn't really touch on this. I kind of hinted at it, but I kind of have a problem with conservatives on social media defending this guy. Um, I understand that the trial wasn't the way that they thought it would go, and the verdict probably wasn't what they wanted. But at the end of the day, I think that Derek Chauvin was in the wrong, and he deserved what he got, 100%. And so, I saw several comments yesterday. I was like, "Oh, I feel sorry for Derek Chauvin." I have zero sympathy for Derek Chauvin. He was a piece of shit cop. But the problem is, and we talked about this in the episode, is that now every cop is now Derek Chauvin, and that's going to be the problem. That's going to be a big problem. And honestly, now they're saying that that wasn't justice. What what happened to Derek Chauvin? The verdict was more than fair, and I think we can all agree on that. But it's never enough. You give them an inch, they take a mile, and it's never going to stop. They're going to do this with other cases, and that's unfortunate. That's a bad deal. It's a really bad situation. But like I said, we have Luke. We did like an hour and 10, 12 minutes, and it was a really good conversation. He hosts the Life Liberty Real Talk podcast, and you ought to go check it out. It's a really good podcast. It's a really really good show. It's shorter episodes if you kind of prefer that, and I think it's a good show. So check it out. But before we get started, this episode is brought to you by OkiePatriot76.com. If you want to support the podcast, you can head over there and pick you up some coffee. We have really good coffee, by the way, and I'm really bad at advertising, but if you like coffee and you're sick and tired of going to the store or going to Starbucks in the morning or having to go to the grocery store, and you have to wear a mask and all this crap, it's just a big hassle, right? So you need to go over to Okie Patriot 76 and pick you up some 76 coffee. We have whole bean, we have ground coffee, we have the K cup, individual serving deals, whatever you like, and also we have apparel, we have hats, we have shirts, we have tank tops, we have stickers, anything. Just go visit the store, and if you don't want to buy anything, that's okay. Go to the website and put your email in, just in case I get banned or this podcast gets taken down. That's kind of a free way to support the podcast. And also a free way is just leaving a rating on iTunes, supporting the podcast that way, hitting subscribe. And also for those listening, you can watch the show. It's on YouTube, and I'll also upload clips to Instagram over on the Redneck Patriot or Okie Patriot 76. So yeah, like I said, this is a spicy episode, and I want people to listen to the whole thing because this could easily be taken out of context. What I say, what Luke said, and I'm going to upload the full thing. I can't do anything past an hour because Instagram upload or cuts it off at an hour. But I'm going to upload the full. It's like 30 or 40 minutes that we talked about the Chauvin case and George Floyd. I'm going to upload the full thing so it doesn't get taken out of context. because I'm not trying to defend George Floyd, but I'm not a big fan of Chauvin either. I think they're both in the wrong, and I think that um, what happened was terrible. What happened was terrible, and I think that whenever these things pop up, conservatives instantly go to the defense of the police officer. And I understand that. And even after all the facts came out, they still did that. But I'm going to be honest with you, I really didn't watch much of the trial. So my opinion doesn't really matter. But I was listening to people on both sides, and what I got from them is that there was a case against the fentanyl and the drugs or whatever, but they also said that they concluded that it wasn't the overdose. It had to do with, you know, Chauvin and just the pressure and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, he was resisting, and we can talk about that all day, but I felt like I feel like I don't really need to get into that because I talked about it on previous episodes when it was happening live and things like that. So we can talk about that all day, but the fact of the matter is, I think that the people on the left need to understand what police officers go through, and then the people on the right need to understand what, how to fix the problem. And when it's when it's obviously when it when it's obviously um like a really bad situation where the cop f's up, I still see conservatives upset about what happened with this case, and it's just like, I'm sorry, like I respect the police 100%. I back the blue. I don't back people like Chauvin. I don't back and there's cops out there more than you think, more than conservative media, more than the media likes to think. There's cops out there that I do not support because of what they do. And I feel like all of the good officers out there agree with that. And I understand they have a hard job, and I wouldn't want to do it. I totally understand. I respect them 100%. And I like to look at both sides. Um, and one of the cases we didn't even talk about was the Derek or the Darian Jarrett situation in New Mexico. If you haven't heard about that, let me just briefly. I may do another podcast talking about that, but whenever more stuff comes out. But this was back in February. This guy was working with the Homeland Security in New Mexico, and the Homeland Security, the higher ups, uh, sent Darian, I think his name is Darian Jarrett, in alone without backup. And this guy was a drug cartel guy. He was a bad dude, kind of like Joe Biden says. Corn Pop was a bad dude. This guy was a bad dude. Okay, and uh, he pulled him over, and the officer was being really nice and really respectful and things like that. And he asked, like, he saw the firearm, and he asked him if he could have it for his safety. And he got out of the vehicle, and the officer was on the opposite, like was on the passenger side door. And so he was walking away. He was facing his car, and the guy, the bad dude, got out with a gun and shot him in the head, and went over there and shot him again. It's a really graphic video. There's a 13-minute long video on YouTube about it. and it's really graphic. It's a really bad deal. But now the the wife, rightfully so, is suing his department and also Homeland Security for not sending in backup. And if you watch the video, whenever the bad dude guy flees, leaves, and they eventually got him, and they eventually, you know, shot him, and he's gone. But if you watch the video, like 20 seconds after the officer got shot, there was like the Homeland Security people, like they were watching this situation like from afar, and that's a bad situation. So like I'm not saying that they have an easy job. It's a very dangerous job, and most police officers are good people. And this Darian guy was, from what I heard, was a really good guy, a really good officer. And just off of the video, that video alone, he was a really good officer, and he really um, did his job very well. And he shouldn't have passed away. And shame on the people in charge of that situation. He could have had backup. He should have had backup in that situation. And so it's just a bad deal. And so I know it may seem in this podcast that I'm just shitting on police officers. I'm not, but I'm shitting on Chauvin and all the bad cops. And I think everybody can agree that bad cops need to find another job. If you're not in your job for the good reasons, then you should find another job. That's all I'm asking these police officers to do. And we touch in that we talk about everything like that. So I wanted to bring that up because I forgot about it and we didn't talk about it. I just wanted to clarify that, because I'm not saying that all cops are bastards or they're all bad, and I'm definitely not looking at all police officers as Chauvin, because that's, like I said, that's what they're saying, is that it doesn't really matter who you are now Chauvin. You are now the blood of George Floyd is on your hands, even though you had nothing to do with it, which is absolutely really asinine, really stupid, and just really dumb. It's a very embarrassing logic. So yeah, I wanted to clarify that. I understand that these people have hard jobs, and I hope that you understand that where I'm coming from. I'm not like I don't want to be a bootlicker. That's basically what I don't want to like defend police at everything they do, because they do some very bad things, but I understand why they happen. I understand why those situations happen, and I understand. I mean, I don't really, but I kind of understand what they go through, but I also understand what black people go through, and also not just black people. There's some white people in Chicago that are blacker than black people, and so what those people, it's not just a race thing, it's a culture thing. And so what those people go through because of the media, because of social media, because of BLM and all these people, they have a way of thinking about police officers. And I think there's a disconnect in these communities of police officers and these people that live there, which is unfortunate. So anyway, here's the episode. I'm done rambling. All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the show, and we have Luke back on. How's it going, man?
Good to be back, man. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, I kind of missed the boat. I apologize for the last couple of weeks. I kind of forgot about it, but it's all right. I get life happens. But before we get started, you want to plug your social media, and you have a podcast as well?
Yeah, if you like listening to me chat, go hit up my show, Life Liberty Real Talk. Follow me on social media platforms at LifeLibertyRT. Mostly talk just personal, professional development, how to get your shit together, get your mind right, and throw a little politics in there as well. So
Awesome. Sounds good. And it's on YouTube and Spotify and all that kind of stuff.
every
iTunes.
platform that you can listen or watch a podcast, you can probably see my ugly mug or listen to my disgusting voice.
I'll put all the links down in the description below so you can check it out. Um, we're going to talk about obviously the Chauvin case, and but before that, some people on Instagram asked some questions, so I thought we would get into that before we get into the Chauvin stuff.
Let's do it.
Um, so Peter over on Instagram, he's like, in regards to written history and tech, do we need to start writing things down again and do it by hand? I don't know what he really means by that, but I guess as far as like your stuff online, I guess.
I mean,
Uh,
my understanding of that is keeping record of just things that happen for
yeah, I mean,
historical
it'd be really hard
purposes.
to do because the internet has a lot of. I mean, it's like it'd be kind of hard to keep track of everything.
I
Like,
don't know. I mean,
what if your house burns down?
I think it's definitely good to keep written records of stuff. I still to this day like will print out photos, the select few photos that I want to keep, or
Yeah,
print out a document or two that I want to keep. And I'm not anti-technology, but I don't really trust it. Like, for
yeah,
example, when you have a ticket for a concert on your phone, I still always print the damn thing out. I don't trust technology. Who
yeah.
knows what's going to happen with that? So, I mean, I'm
I
still a
don't
huge
either.
advocate of writing things down, printing things out, keeping things. But I think from a historical perspective, honestly, in the scary climate that we have now, where they're already trying to erase history, um, I think keeping some belongings, some historical belongings to yourself might be a not a half bad idea.
Brandon said, "Do you feel that Ron DeSantis has to be the new face of the GOP, and he's like the new Trump, basically?" What he said.
I actually would love DeSantis to become the new face of the GOP. I think he's Trump, but more professional and less hateable. I think
Yeah,
his policies are very similar. He doesn't take shit from the media. He doesn't take shit from the cancel culture, all that stuff. He always is very professional. He doesn't really have times like Trump did where he would kind of, make fun of somebody or, do the stuff that people didn't like Trump for. All of his tweets, even when he's like coming after somebody or making a statement, they're still very professional. I think honestly, DeSantis is everything that I wish Trump would have been in office, because I think what shot Trump in the foot was, the tweets, the him, roasting different people. And although it's fucking hilarious to me,
yeah,
and to me, I don't really care if a president's doing that as long as they're doing their job policy wise, which I believe that Trump did. I think if we would have had DeSantis starting in as president with the attitude he has in the current climate back in 2016, we honestly might not be as divided just because there was such a hate for Trump. But who knows?
yeah,
They might have ousted any conservative in office, and they might have had this whole ordeal planned all along. And it just happened that Trump delayed it for 4 years, and that's why everybody was pissed. I really don't know. I mean, I think they were grooming Hillary to do exactly what's going on during this climate right now. I think they were just the shock factor that Trump got into office pissed everybody off, and they started pushing all the narrative, anti-Trump, all that stuff. So I don't know. Who knows if it would have happened or not? But put it this way, I would not be upset if I saw DeSantis on the ticket for, or is it DeSantis or DeSantos? I think
DeSantis. Yeah,
DeSantis.
I always think
Either
it's
way,
Rick, but that's Rick Santorum. I
yeah,
get kind of confused a little bit, but
I
yeah,
would not be upset to see him on the ticket in 2024.
yeah, I'd actually vote for him over Trump, to be honest.
I would vote for him over Trump. I really would. I
Yeah,
hope honestly, I hope Trump does not run again. And
Yeah,
because of the fact that, he did his job
I don't
in,
really think he has a chance, to be honest.
I think all he would do he would pull votes away from the GOP. Like, would
I
I
think,
be upset with him being back in office?
yeah,
No, not at all. But I think there are enough politicians now that are kind of following suit and following this new Trump era type
yeah,
GOP mentality. And I think that if Trump ran, um, the people that hate him on the right wouldn't vote for him, and they would just steal votes. But I think if somebody like DeSantis ran, then those people that hated Trump, they might not hate him as much, and they might be more apt to come back to the party and vote red again. So
yeah. And he's going to be like what 80 whenever in
yeah,
2024. So I mean, I think Ron is a good option for the MAGA people. So I mean, I really like is what they're doing with the anti-riot bill. I don't know if you looked into that, but basically what
yeah,
they're doing is that they have to um like they can't be bailed out until like their trial or whatever. Because basically what was happening last summer, they were bailing all these people out.
and they were just
Bef-
going and rioting again,
yeah,
and yeah,
and like the people on the left, well, like they're being arrested, but they're being arrested and they're being bailed out like hours later, and that was kind of the problem. So, and
yeah,
I
they're
think I
being
think I want to say Florida. No, that was Minnesota, but I'm pretty sure that they had something in the bill where if they were caught rioting, they were stripped of their unemployment or government stuff, government
I think
benefits.
Minnesota might have just done that because they're finally starting to really crack down, increase police presence.
I hope so.
Their Minneapolis mayor just came out the other day with like a zero tolerance warning for rioting,
Yeah,
which should seem unexplanatory. Like, oh, you riot, it's
it's kind of
illegal,
a year
you're
too late though.
arrested. Yeah, it really is. But I honestly, it was good to see that they're finally coming to their senses because
Yeah,
when there's riots in Minneapolis and they're still talking about defunding the police and having just social workers come in and calm down the situation, that to me wasn't the right move. So the fact that they're making a switch and realizing that they need to actually increase police presence to combat these riots that are going on, that I think that's a step forward for that city as well.
yeah. I don't know about where you're at, but here in Oklahoma, they just passed a deal where if you hit somebody in a riot and you're fearing for your life or whatever, you can get out of like I don't know if you saw that viral video last year in Tulsa with the horse
Yeah,
trailer. It was all across the internet, but they used that as an example. I think somebody got paralyzed. Somebody fell off a bridge and got paralyzed, and they was wanting to charge the guy or the girl. I think I can't remember, but anyway, they just passed that the other day, and I think
which
that's it.
I
That's
mean,
good.
here's my thing. So I live in Iowa City, like I've said, and one day during back when all the protests were taking place, ours never got super violent, but they were confrontational, and it was worrisome. And I
Yeah,
was driving home one day, and I was at a stoplight. The car to my left was in the left turn lane. I was about to go straight. All of a sudden, I see probably 500 to 700 protesters
that's
turn the
insane.
corner and start walking down the road towards me. I'm sitting at a red light. I'm thinking, oh shit, because they're coming. I mean, the intersection I was at is one of the main intersections downtown, and they were coming to circle it. So I quickly made an illegal U turn around the car to my left, went up a block, and by the time I did that, the car that was sitting right next to me didn't move. They had surrounded it with protesters, and they were touching the car, shaking the
Yeah,
car, stuff like that. I mean, I think they ended up just letting the dude pass and it was fine, but that would be scary, especially during this current climate where I drive a pickup truck and like that's thought of as instantly conservative, racist, whatever.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
who knows what would have happened. So I mean, I think there's no way you should just let protesters, rioters, whatever, just start touching your car and all that stuff. And if you're truly fearing for your life, you should be able to get the hell out of there, because
Yeah,
what I witnessed when I got out of the situation and then saw what they were doing to that car, no, it didn't seem like it was escalating, but they were probably scaring the piss out of the guy in that car. And he probably had nothing to do with anything that they were even remotely. I mean, hell, who knows? He might have voted for Bernie Sanders. He might have voted for Biden. No,
yeah,
they don't care. They simply don't care. They're there to cause destruction, and that was it. I mean, the protesters, I feel bad for, because they were truly there for a reason to try and push change. But then you had these people that gave them a bad look, sadly, and double sadly, it was primarily like woke white college kids that were starting all the destruction and all that, at least from what I've seen in our area and some of the areas. And it sucks because that it gave the protests a terrible name. And I think we've talked about this before, but I definitely agree with that rule.
yeah. And I don't personally feel sorry for somebody who protested on the highway. Like I don't know if you saw the what happened in Seattle or maybe Portland last year, where that guy from India or somewhere, he was like an immigrant. He was driving like a white Mercedes or something, and he hit somebody and killed somebody. And they were protesting on the interstate. Like I don't feel sorry for somebody. Like I understand you have to protest, but don't do it
Yeah, and
in
I
on the
mean,
interstate.
no, I totally agree with you. I mean, at the end of the day, is it sad that
Yeah.
somebody's life was lost? Yes. But at the same time, just be smart. Have
Yeah.
common sense, you
There's like
know?
1,000 places to protest, and you can do it all day as long as it's not
I
violent or
get
whatever.
I understand the statement
Yeah.
of being on the interstate. I do. But at the
Yeah.
same time, that is directly putting yourself in danger, and that's nobody else's fault that you passed away because you were walking through the middle of the interstate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what they're thinking when they think they can stop a semi. Like I don't know if you saw that yesterday in Minneapolis or Appolis. They tried to stop that, and she stopped. Which
And see, I would never,
yeah,
not in a million years. I
yeah.
would
That's the worst thing you could possibly do. Just keep on going. But I
just
guess
keep inching forward. Somebody will eventually get the fuck out of your way.
yeah. I mean, I guess they're worried. I guess the drivers are worried that they might get sued or something. But I don't know.
Which is the sad part about the environment we live in now. Not even like politics aside, just the fact that somebody could run in front of a semi on purpose, get run over, and blame the semi driver. Like this
Yeah,
goes back to just what we've talked about before. Just nobody takes personal responsibility for anything anymore. It's always somebody else's fault. And you know the sad part is they probably would have won the lawsuit and that driver would probably no longer be employed.
yeah.
But,
Unfortunately, yeah,
you know, so like, did she probably do the right thing for her best interest in terms of job security, especially with a CDL, how strict all that stuff is? Yeah, but it shouldn't be that way.
yeah. I mean, if that keeps on happening, you're going to see these truck drivers just boycott that area. Like I'm not going to that area and deliver stuff.
I would never,
Yeah.
honestly. And like
So I mean, you played yourself. Good luck getting supplies up there.
and I mean, like we were trying to launch a trucking company here a couple of months ago. It wasn't the right time, so I think we're gonna revisit the idea probably mid 2022 after we get some of the other businesses kind of steady and growing again. But um, I when we were looking at hiring drivers, like when we would interview them, I would literally say, "Look, I suggest you get a carry permit. I suggest you carry when you're in states that allow you
Yeah.
to. I want you to be as safe as possible. We're going to have a camera for you that's facing out in the front, so you know lawsuits are easier. But I suggest that you carry a firearm." And they were all like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hell yeah, I want to work
Yeah.
for you, man."
Heck yeah.
I was interviewing these 45, 50-year-old dudes, and I'm 23. It's like they were probably like, "Who the hell is this kid?" And then I said that, and they were like, "Yeah, I like this guy."
Yeah. I mean, this is what you have to do, and especially in these blue areas of the country that don't really, that allow that kind of stuff to happen and don't put the foot down like Florida. So
My wonderful state of Iowa just became a constitutional carry state the
that's
other day,
awesome, dude.
which I mean, I still think it's stupid to open carry. I would still get a concealed carry permit, but
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the next question. Let me see if I can find it. David said, lowering minimum age for buying a firearm legally. I would say everything should be one age, either 18 or 21. I don't understand this idea of like, oh, you can't drink, but you can pay taxes and vote and go join the military. But I think everything should be 21 or 18.
I don't know. I mean, I understand
I mean, it's just all
where they're
about where they're
coming
out
from.
mentally or whatever.
I understand where they're coming from in barring the sale of handguns to individuals
Yeah,
under 21. Um, like I've always said, I'm totally for gun control as long as at the end of the day I can still purchase them, I can still
yeah,
use them, all that stuff. I don't Was it way too easy to get a carry permit here in Iowa? Yes, even I can admit that because there are some people who could have done what I did. It took me 7 minutes to get my carry permit online. Didn't have to go to
yeah,
a class, didn't have to do anything. So like, yeah, is that a little too easy? Yes, I can fully admit that. You want to make me go to a weekend class? Fine. All I want to do is be able to get it. But I think honestly, the 18 to 21, I think it's good in the way of your first gun probably shouldn't be a handgun.
yeah,
And if you can buy a rifle or a shotgun or, you know, those types of firearms and learn how to safely carry a firearm, learn how to safely fire it, learn how to safely if you're just some 18-year-old who is still in high school and thinks he's cool and goes out at 18 and buys a handgun and then decides, when everybody gets their first handgun, it's like, oh, I'm going to put it in my waistband and just look at it in the mirror. This is cool.
yeah,
I finally have a handgun. Like every single person does that.
yeah,
What happens if that kid thinks he's cool and he brings it to school?
yeah,
So like, I get, okay, we should have people get larger guns that are harder to conceal, learn gun safety, and then upgrade to a handgun. I honestly don't personally have a problem with it. I had a handgun before I was 21 because it
yeah,
got gifted to me, and that's perfectly legal, at least in my state of Iowa. Um, but no, I mean, I'm definitely going to start my kid off shooting every gun under the sun as young as possible.
yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Uh, Another question is, what steps do we need to take to get the Vaccine Injury Act restore liability? I don't know. I don't really know much about that, but I do know that's a problem. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, I'd get the vaccine if this company would be held accountable for it or whatever. Or,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on that too,
yeah,
because on one hand, my personal beliefs are they are putting this out for, a reason. We have a pandemic. We're trying to get past it. They rushed, they had a vaccine. And if you choose to get it, I don't necessarily think that the company should be super liable. I mean, as long as they preface it with, hey, there will be some side effects, all this stuff. But at the same time, the reason I'm not getting it personally is because it hasn't been studied enough. I haven't seen, the long-term effects and the risk versus reward for my age and my health and the people I come in contact with. It's just not there yet. So I get, if the vaccine company said, oh, we'll pay for all your medical, whatever compensation if anything goes wrong, like, would I be more apt to get it? Maybe.
yeah,
But then I look at it in terms of like, it's similar in my mind to the lawsuit with McDonald's a while back where the lady spilled coffee on her lap and sued McDonald's for millions of dollars because
yeah,
she didn't know the coffee was hot.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
because then where does it end? That's what, like, is this specific instance
Yeah, I feel
that
like some
bad?
people would get the vaccine just to sue.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
is this specific instance that bad in my mind? No. But if you open the door to this, then you open the door to millions of other different things down the road that could then be paralleled to it and say, oh, well, we did this. Why can't I sue a company for this? Or why can't I sue a company for this? Or why, and so it's a gray area. Do I see it? Yes. Do I think it could lead to challenges 5-10 years from now? Also, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree. I kind of go back and forth. Like it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, but all I know is I'm not getting it, so I don't really have to worry about it. So
There you go. The only way I'm ever getting it is if we do a complete and utter just government shutdown of everything in the world unless you have a vaccine, and I'm essentially
yeah,
forced to get it. That's the only.
which I think that's eventually how it's going to be. Eventually,
Sadly, I agree, and I truly hope we don't get to that point.
yeah.
And
I mean, at least it's not like as bad as Canada. I don't know if you've been paying
oh
attention
my
when it's
goodness,
terrible. Um,
Canada is a mess right now, but
yeah,
luckily they have, a group of people who have been kind of going around and um really just fighting. That one guy, the guy with the tattoos on his neck. What's his name?
Chris guy.
Yes,
Yeah,
that guy. He's a savage.
dude, he's awesome. He's like the Canadian version of Ian Smith or whatever,
Yeah.
that gym owner. Dude,
Yeah,
he's
he's
pretty
like
awesome.
he's like Ian Smith meets Alex Jones meets Steven Crowder, but in
Yeah,
Canada.
it is crazy. Like I read this story or I saw this story on TikTok where and I don't know if it's true or not, but this woman flew home to Canada, and I guess what they're doing is you have to quarantine when you fly back from another country, and you have to pay for your own hotel, which is like 4,000 or like $3,500 or $3,000 or some crazy
They
amount.
make you quarantine in a hotel?
Yeah, no,
I
it's
could
not even.
understand. I could understand, hey, quarantine at your own house, you've been in another country,
You have to
whatever.
pay for it. Yeah, like you have to pay for the hotel for the week or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, and so this woman was needing to go to a doctor's appointment because she flew home for a medical emergency, and they wouldn't let her like leave to go to that doctor's appointment. She had to test, and of course she tested positive, so she had to go to their quarantine camp or whatever it is, which is so stupid. Like they're like, oh, you have to do this, but you have to pay for it. Like
That's
why don't
getting
they pay for it if they want you to do it?
it is getting ridiculous, and honestly, it's looking more and more like I'll miss my Canada fishing trip 2 years in a row now, but
Yeah,
I
and which
used
is
to
sad
go.
because there's a lot of people in Canada that that didn't ask for this or whatever. So I mean, and
I
it's a
know.
sad deal.
I'm
And
hoping for some reason it somehow magically opens up again by June because, that'll be 2 years in a row where I don't get to go fishing in beautiful Canada.
dude, that's terrible.
I miss it. I miss it so much. I didn't get to go last year, obviously, and we've gone every year, my dad and I and some
Yeah,
family friends for about 10 years, and there's nothing better than fresh caught Canadian walleye, man. Nothing better.
I heard it's really nice up there. I haven't been, but I heard it's really beautiful up there.
Oh, beautiful. I do that trip every year, and then, one year we went on a canoe backpacking fishing trip, me and a couple of buddies. We canoed over like 75 miles, portaged over probably 8 miles along the week. Never stayed at the same campsite once. It was surreal. We saw two other humans the entire week we were there. Two other humans.
Sounds like my
It
kind of
was
trip
the
there.
most. Oh, it was the most beautiful trip I've ever had.
Sounds like it. Yeah, like in Ontario, like I don't know if you heard about they're closing off the non-essential items or whatever. Like you can't buy clothes and stuff like that at stores.
Dude, I heard that.
It's
It's
crazy.
it's ridiculous because they weren't even this strict in the beginning. Like
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened.
California has stayed pretty consistently just lockdown, shut down for kind of the duration, and they're just now kind of starting to open up a little bit more, but they're pretty slow to the jump. But Canada in the beginning, even during the lockdown, you could still go just like here in Iowa, you could still go buy clothes, but it might be order online, pickup only, whatever it is.
Yeah,
But then those stores opened as quickly as possible in everywhere in America, I feel like. Canada's were not super shut down in the beginning. And now, here a year plus later, they're going to start doing these just crazy shutdowns. I just truly do not understand it. It
yeah.
seems irrational. It seems like they're just doing something to do something. I don't get it.
basically, and you have to have a reason, a good enough reason to be outside, basically. Like if you like from what I heard, you can't just get in your car and drive around. You have to go to somewhere, go to the somewhere essential or whatever, which is so stupid.
Wow. I mean, um, you listen to my buddy Mike's podcast, the
Yeah, yeah.
co-host
He's from Canada.
Garrett on that. He's in Canada, and I was talking
Yeah.
to him the other day, and he said where he lives isn't that bad because it's more rural, but he said some of the areas are just shut down, shut down. And I had talked to him earlier in COVID, and he said they were pretty much just chilling at that point. So
Yeah. And he's in Alberta, right?
yes, I think so.
Yeah. And from what I heard, I have people that follow me from Alberta. They say it's not bad, but in Ontario, it's really bad, which is like this Toronto area or whatever. So, um, I guess we can get it. This next question kind of leads into the Chauvin stuff. I know everybody wants to hear about that if they're listening to this when they click on it. But Amy said, "Is there any hope for Officer Chauvin?"
You know what? During the trial, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got killed in prison. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I
Yeah,
think
and yeah,
they need to isolate him first of all.
yeah, absolutely.
And second of all, I would not be surprised if he still ended up getting killed in prison.
Yeah, I give it 6 months probably, or
Depends on
six
how much
weeks.
security. It just totally depends on how much security they
Yeah,
put on him. I mean, you
yeah.
look at Jerry
From what I heard,
Sandusky
I
back in
think
the
I
day.
think they're going to isolate him. From what I heard,
I mean, they
I think they're
should.
going to do that.
They should. I don't care
Yeah,
if you're, I mean,
yeah,
like Jerry Sandusky, for example, in my mind, did some of the most unspeakable, atrocious things in the world. And they isolated him because they knew that he would have got murdered as soon as he got into prison. So, you'd think when you have
yeah,
these high profile people that have public cases that the opinions are very, one or the other, that, I mean, you'd hope they would take his safety seriously. So
yeah. Absolutely. Do Do you think it was a fair trial?
fair trial, yes. Do I agree with the fact that the jury deliberated for not that long on what was probably the most controversial, biggest trial since O.J. Simpson?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Like this is our generation's OJ Simpson. As far as the level is publicized, and I mean, it's probably even bigger because of the internet more. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, everybody across the world is saw that video, and everybody knows about it.
And, I truly feel awful for the jurors. Never in a million years
Absolutely,
did
yeah,
I want to get selected for the jury for this trial because the public opinion is so polarized and their names are all public and all that stuff. It's
yeah.
like,
I was
it,
reading
it,
this article, and they had all their information on there, and one of the guys was. It kind of felt like he was forced to say this, but he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna move by where George Floyd was killed just to honor him or whatever." I was like, I mean,
I feel so bad for them
yeah,
because let's say hypothetically that they all would have come to a consensus of not guilty. Um, they're they would have had to go into like witness protection. There would have been
yeah,
people gunning for their heads, and I think that and my opinion on the case, and I probably watched 4 or 5 total hours of it. Didn't watch the whole thing. That would have been a lot, but
yeah,
I was actually very surprised at the case that the defense brought. Um, I thought just from what I witnessed from both the defense and the prosecution, I didn't see if I would have been a juror, I'm not sure I would have come to a conclusion as quickly as they did. Just simply because, there were some things that the defense brought that shed light on there being a possibility of other causes of death. And now that's not me saying that he's not guilty for anybody that's listening that just instantly wants to say, you're a racist. I'm simply saying that in this country, in order to be guilty of a crime, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think whether true or not, the defense brought up a bunch of evidence that maybe could have been investigated more, and seen that, maybe he didn't, maybe Chauvin didn't cause his death. Maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe, like all of these things that were just kind of more gray area. He very well could have been guilty. It very well could have been on purpose. Should his knee have been on George Floyd for 9 minutes? Never in a million years. That's bad policing. But at the end of the day, the trial was, what was his cause of death? And I think the defense brought a case in which didn't at least give me personally the confidence to say that beyond a reasonable doubt he was guilty. So I truly, I feel bad for the jurors, because even if there were some jurors that did bring that case, I feel like their opinions could have got swept under the rug. And I feel like they were all frightened to actually say that because of public opinion about this case. So,
Yeah,
I completely understand as well.
yeah. I think their biggest problem is that they could have moved it to another area, and they should have isolated the jurors. And also, I don't think the trial should have been live streamed.
I agree. Honestly, I believe that this trial should have been
Private.
more private because of public opinion, because of it being in the media for months and months and months. And the hard part is it would have been hard to find unbiased jurors either way
Yeah.
because of how public it's been. Literally, if you're an American citizen, there's almost a 0% chance that you haven't heard of it. You hadn't seen that video initially from the bystander. You
Yeah.
hadn't at least read an article, seen a clip on the news, whatever about it, because for months and months and months, it was everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, there's people that don't have internet access, like homeless people, wherever. They're like, oh, yeah, George Floyd. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
was
Everybody's heard about
almost,
it.
you would have had to be completely in isolation, talking
Yeah.
to nobody
The Amish people.
in order to not know about this
Well, the Amish
incident.
people know about COVID, so they probably know about George Floyd.
I'm sure they do. I mean, it's literally, you could not have, for months, you could not have walked down the street without hearing his name or hearing about the case. And I
Yeah.
think it was very difficult to find an unbiased view. And like I said, I truly feel bad for those jurors. And in that instance, would I have been fearing for my life, and would I have come forward as a juror and said, I don't think that this is beyond a reasonable doubt, we should at least talk this through? I truly don't know. I've never been in a situation where I've actually had to fear that there would be public outrage about something that I decided, and I've never had that much weight on my shoulders. So I truly don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really bad situation. And like I said, it shouldn't have been publicized, live streamed like that. And I mean, I don't know if you heard about that. There was two officers here recently that donated to Kyle Rittenhouse. One of the officers donated like $20 or $25, and he's now fired. And so they do stuff like that. I understand why these people are scared.
And my other thing with this case too that confused me, and I'm not super knowledgeable of the law by any means, but it's a field of interest for me. So I, read up on it every now and then. And I don't understand the charges brought, because it was third-degree murder, second-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. And he was
Yeah.
found guilty on all three. And, like I said before, prefacing this, like, this is not me saying what he did was not messed up. This is not me saying that he maybe shouldn't have been found guilty. I'm simply just playing devil's advocate, bringing forth all the information to get you as listeners to think about this more in depthly. But third degree murder in my mind is kind of like, for example, if I walk into a crowd and I shoot a gun into a crowd and I have the intent of killing other people, but end up just killing one person.
Yeah.
I wasn't directing my fire at anybody, but I was spraying into a crowd, end up killing one person. That would be a charge brought up as third-degree murder. And to me, just all three of these charges together didn't really make sense in my mind. I don't think third-degree murder necessarily should have been allowed to be in that court case.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me. I mean, I was listening to people on the left, and they were saying that the reason why he was charged with like the second degree with a felony, I guess in Minneapolis, even if you don't have intent and you were insulting somebody or like a police officer was doing excessive force, that's still a felony or whatever. So that was the felony charge of the second degree. So
I
I mean, he was
understood
definitely overcharged for sure.
I
So
understood one or the other
yeah,
because you could make a case for either. What I don't understand is how are you guilty? In my mind, if you're guilty of second-degree murder, you're pretty much automatically guilty of third-degree murder.
yeah,
And they both whereas but in third-degree murder, I believe that it adds you had the intent to harm other people. Not necessarily a targeted attempt, but you had you had the intent of harming other people, at least how I understand how third degree is written. In second degree murder, just like you said, you might not have the intent to kill somebody, but you did use excessive force towards that singular person. You had intent to not necessarily cause them harm, but to use force on them in some way, and they end up dying. So that's what I don't understand, just how both
yeah.
of those played in together. I thought it should have been one or the other. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people were saying that he should be acquitted or he should be not guilty or whatever. I knew he was going to be guilty. It was just the question of on what or which one or whatever. So,
I
but the
also don't think
all three really shocked me.
I also don't think this is the last we'll hear of it. I think that the defense will likely
Yeah, they'll do
appeal
appeal.
it,
Yeah,
and I mean, who knows what'll come of that. And at the end of the day,
but if they find like if they acquit him after that, then I don't know. Just be ready, Minneapolis. I guess
honestly,
to a
like
bad
I
situation.
go back and forth on this because on one hand, I would love to uncover the man's true intent
Yeah,
and actually come to the bottom of this. But on the other hand, if one and at the end of the day, I mean, he's a scumbag either way. I mean, he knelt on George
yeah. I
Floyd
mean,
for over
definitely
9 years.
anybody like I mean, I hope everybody agrees with this, but Derek Chauvin was a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Honestly,
he was a piece of shit, but at the same time, I do feel for him in terms of I don't truly think this was a racial thing. I
no,
think
no.
he's just a dickhead cop who was on a power trip, and
Yeah,
he probably just wanted to display his power to whoever was going to be in that circumstance on that given day.
yeah,
Still completely in the wrong. I believe he should be terminated. Um, but it'll be interesting. I go back and forth on this. Do I necessarily care if some piece of shit cop, um, you know, is acquitted when the fallback of that is going to be every major city in the country is going to get destroyed? Or do I necessarily not care that, that a guy who's probably not the best human is going to be locked up for something that, he was in the wrong in, regardless of if he caused the death of George Floyd or not, he was still in the wrong in the situation. So do I necessarily care that, he'll be locked up, but our cities for the most part will be a little safer? I don't know where my head is on that one.
yeah. I kind of go back and forth. I think given the circumstances with BLM and Maxine Waters and Joe Biden, all these people, coming up there and commenting on stuff, I think they make the right decision for their safety and for everybody's safety up there. But everybody, I don't know if you saw Greg Gutfield's comment yesterday. He was like, whether or not Chauvin was innocent or guilty, I'm glad that they convicted him just for the safety of everybody's.
Which also isn't right. I mean, and like I
Yeah,
just said, I'm kind of ping ponging that around in my head as
yeah,
well. I mean,
yeah,
it's still fresh, obviously, from yesterday, but
yeah,
it, I also go back to okay, if we allow him to be guilty, let's say hypothetically it was not his intent and he was not the cause of George Floyd's death. Again, not saying that's what I believe. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if the fentanyl, let's say he did actually consume fentanyl before, and like the defense brought up, he did say, I swallowed too many drugs in the video, which to me it was really unclear in the video whether he said that or not. But
Yeah,
let's
I
say
don't know
that's
about
all.
that either.
Let's say that is all true, hypothetically, and this man gets convicted. I would look at this like, oh shit, we're coming to the point where politics is now getting involved in the courtroom, and that scares me for the future of our judicial system. So, I go back and forth on that, because if he was truly not the cause of George Floyd's death, irregardless of the fact that he was a dickhead and he was on a power trip and he used excessive force, because he did, but if he was not the cause of death, and if it is true that his knee was on his shoulder and not his neck, down the laundry list of things that the defense brought up, I feel like the court system does have, you know, a, a job to bring to light what truly happened. And like I said, I don't know. I wasn't in the courtroom. I wasn't at the incident when it happened. But if hypothetically that's true, I think they have a job to do in acquitting him. I just truly don't know.
Yeah, and the problem is what I'm seeing now is that um, every cop is now Derek Chauvin. People are saying that every cop is, regardless of if they're a good cop or a bad cop, every white cop is Derek Chauvin, and that's where it sets a really bad precedent or whatever um, for future cases.
And that's
And
honestly,
there's no really big incentive to be a cop anymore after this.
no, I would never. In this day and age, I would never want to be a police officer.
No.
But I look at it like this. Look, it's different, but it's similar in the way. Okay, do you follow professional sports? If yes, you're probably only a fan of the really good players, right?
Yeah.
You probably don't pay any attention to the people that ride the bench, the people that don't matter. It's the same thing when I wear a back the blue shirt or a mask or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not saying, hey, cops are okay when they kill people that are innocent and they use excessive force. No, what I'm saying when I wear that is I feel bad for these people. I want to support and prop up the amazing men and women that are great police officers, because the majority of cops are truly good and there to protect you.
Yeah, and I think the
That's all
problem,
I'm saying.
yeah,
I don't like the shitty ones. I'm not supporting the cops that are racist. I'm not supporting the cops that do use excessive force. I'm not supporting the cops that are out on power trips. I'm supporting the majority of men and women in blue that are truly risking their lives every day to keep you and I safe.
yeah, and I think the problem is that in these communities, like they have a certain opinion about cops because of the media or because of who they follow on social media or whatever, like their little circle. But I like what like my town is doing a meetup where they're letting everybody here in the community meet the cops and see what kind of person they are. And it says put faces with the badge. And I think that's what needs to happen in these communities, especially like black communities, is have them meet up with the cops to see who they really are.
I
And
think that's awesome.
yeah,
I think every police department in this country is going to be faced with the hard reality that public opinion of their job title, no matter who it is in the uniform, is declining so rapidly every single day. I think that's awesome. I think every police department should have something along the lines of a new department that just simply deals with public opinion
yeah,
nowadays, because it's going to become a necessity. There's going to have to be a, a heavy PR presence in all of the police departments around the country. And I think that's awesome. I might, talk to some of the city officials here and urge them to do the same, because I think
yeah,
if you actually sit down and talk to these men and women, the majority of them are good people. I know a lot of the cops in this area, and a lot of them are great humans. They would never do anything that would intentionally harm other people, and they're truly here to just, keep us safe at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think ride-alongs. I think having these people do ride-alongs, because I think some of these people don't really understand what they go through.
Yeah, no, I went on a ride
Yeah,
along
yeah,
in high school because I had to do a job shadow for a class, and I thought,
yeah.
"Huh,
Me
what would
too.
be the
Yeah,
most fun job shadow? I'll just
yeah,
try to go on a ride along with a cop."
yeah,
And dude, they I mean, we arrested, I think, 2 or 3 people that day. One of the gentlemen was very respectful, and, that there was no issues. One of the guys was piss hammered, getting in a fight in a grocery store. He's a homeless man, and he was throwing a fit, and he was resisting arrest, and, they ended up having to slam him onto the ground and neutralize him for a second till he calmed down and everything. And once he calmed down, they got him in the back of the car and everything was fine. And then the third guy, was mouthing off to the officers the whole time, but he wasn't physically resisting. So, but just the different types of situations, even that I saw in that one day, and being in the car while they were wrestling this homeless man to the ground, not knowing, whether he had a weapon on him or whether he had, and they're willingly going into this every single day in the complete unknown. Like
yeah,
truly, they don't know who is in the driver's seat of a car when they pull somebody over. They don't know when they get a call what type of person they're going to encounter. And there's a lot of unknown in being a police officer, and you have to go into every traffic stop, every circumstance on high alert. And that's the scary thing. And it's getting even worse nowadays with the public opinion of officers, because not only do they have to worry about, the people that would have just inherently been assholes and tried to, injure the police officer just to get away. Now they have to worry about, oh, this person that I'm pulling over could hate me just because of the uniform I'm wearing and could cause me, serious harm because of that simple instance.
yeah. And then now they're saying that police officers, while doing a traffic stop, should be unarmed, but that doesn't really help the situation. I mean, just look at what happened with George Floyd. He didn't come with a gun. Like he didn't use a gun at all. So,
And
I
that,
mean,
that kind of came to light with the newest killing.
the one in
Um,
Columbus or the one in Ohio, or was it
um,
Ohio? The one that happened yesterday?
which one? The one where
Dante Wright.
the female cop? Yes, that one. I don't remember where it was, but
Yeah.
in that case, I mean, I feel really bad for her as well, because I think she had full intent of pulling a taser, which complete mess up on her end.
Yeah.
She should face penalties for that as well. But I feel bad for her because you could
She's
hear her
probably
in
going to
the,
be the next Derek Chauvin
and I
because
don't
of
think
the area.
I
Because
don't
it's right
believe
up there in the same area.
I don't believe that it's a similar instance. She didn't necessarily use excessive force. I think she
Well,
technically, in terms of protocol, had the green light,
yeah,
but she did say taser. She did, assuming just from what I saw and how instantly when it happened, you hear her just remorse. Oh, I shot him. Oh no, I shot him. I shot
yeah.
him.
It's a bad situation.
But I truly think in that circumstance, in protocol, she had the green light. He ran back into the car. He was rummaging around, reaching for something. You don't know what he's trying to get. It came out later that, he was in possession of a gun. There were videos of him with a firearm and all that stuff. But it's just this climate that we're in is, I would never want to be a police officer. You make one wrong step in anything and you're completely chastised and castrated for it.
Yeah, and if the people in or if the police force in Minneapolis and all these bigger cities walk, I wouldn't blame them. I
I
mean, they
would,
should. They should.
if I was a cop, I would retire as soon as possible.
Or
People
move to
who
a
are,
state that protects what they do or whatever. Just
I know,
you know,
yeah, I know a few Chicago cops that have like 1 to 2 more years left until they're 25 years in and can get their pension, and
yeah,
they're seriously considering retiring just that early, even like a year early, and throwing away all their
yeah,
pension plan and their retirement and all that stuff because of the public opinion right now. And I think they're going to end up, the ones I know are going to end up sticking it out. But
Yeah. I mean, if I was a white cop and I heard on the radio that it was, oh, we have a black suspect or whatever, I'm like, oh, you can take it.
I mean, the
Yeah,
sad reality is
yeah,
that's
that's
going to
gonna
be
be
what
how it is.
happens.
Yeah,
Cops are going to push cases onto other people because they're truly worried to go into an instance where a minority is involved, and they're not going to end up getting the protection that they need. Nobody's going to end up getting the protection they need because the cops are going to be deathly afraid to go into the circumstance, not only because they're risking their life, but also because, you know, they're so in the public eye right now that they could get fired for donating $20 to something. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. How do you feel about the other officers? Do you think like because my thing is that Derek Chauvin is guilty 100%, but the other officers, do you think that they could have done something to stop him like that? The other
I
three?
no, I think he was completely in the wrong. And when I say he might not be guilty, I'm simply coming from the outlook that what was the cause of death? It very well could have been drugs. It could have been Derek Chauvin. It could have been a number of things. So that's why I say, the guilty verdict is up in the air in my
Yeah,
head. But was he in the wrong? 1000% yes. And those
yeah,
cops around him, when he had his knee, whether it was on his shoulder, whether it was on his neck, either way, it doesn't matter. It should not have been on George Floyd's body for 9 minutes. And I think the other police officers should have stepped in and said, hey, this guy hasn't been struggling. He hasn't really moved in a while. Maybe we just cuff him and put him in the back of the car. I think that cops have to start looking out for each other in terms of when they see use of excessive force, they need to step in. And
yeah,
that I think there needs to be trainings on that. I think we need to further educate officers to say, okay, if your partner or somebody on your unit or your police force is using excessive force and you see it, you need to be the one to step in and help neutralize the situation. And then
yeah,
there needs to be an investigation interdepartmentally on the incident. And then that officer needs to either have to go through a complete retraining to learn about the use of excessive force and why it's wrong, or if it's bad enough, be terminated, because that's how we're going to get the public opinion of police to get better, making steps like that. That's how we're going to have less of these incidences happen, is just further training officers to look out for it when they might not even be directly involved.
Do you think that the other officers are going to be charged with the same thing with murder?
I truly don't
I mean,
know.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
hope not, but they're just in the wrong for not stepping in and stopping that.
I would,
In my
yes,
view, but
I would hope not, because I don't necessarily consider either of any of the officers that were bystanders to be an accessory by any means. I don't think they helped cause George Floyd's death, but the other side of the same coin is they didn't step in. Um, I don't know how they were all trained. If they were following protocol,
yeah,
I don't necessarily think they should face charges, but I think the department needs looked at. It just depends on what they have been taught to do, in my mind, in that instance. So,
yeah,
to me, I don't see in any police department there being really protocol on something like that yet. And that's why I think that needs to change. But
yeah.
I hope that they don't get charged, just because, they were not the ones that had their knee on George Floyd for 9 minutes.
Yeah, definitely more training and more funding. Like all these people talking about defunding the police, they need more funding, they need to be paid more, and they need to make it really hard as far as training to become a police officer.
I agree, honestly. It should be more like, you
The
know,
military.
the military. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think if you're a 50-year-old overweight dude that can't run a mile, I don't think you should be able to be a cop anymore.
Yeah.
I think they should make it harder. It shouldn't be an easy job to get into. I shouldn't be able to just come off the street and just be a police officer by going through like a week long of classes. And I mean, they do have some physical requirements and some tests you have to take and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But if you make the process harder and then at the same time add more funding, give them a better salary, trainings, maybe quarterly, maybe biannually, annually, whatever it may be, continued education is going to be important. I think it needs looked at, and I think we need to rearrange how they're trained, all that good stuff. But defunding them is the wrong move, because then what that's going to lead to is even shittier police officers who have even less training, who are getting paid even less, who care
Yeah.
even less. And you're going to actually increase these instances, because the only people that are going to want to be cops are the people that are just complete burnouts and they've never had power in anything in their life. And they see, oh, it's easy to become a cop and they're defunded and I don't really care how much I make, but I want the power of having a badge and a gun. That's what it's going to turn into,
Yeah.
because nobody of sound mind is going to end up wanting to be a police officer.
Yeah. If I was a police officer and I had a family and this was going on, I'd be like, and I'm making like what, 40, 50,000 a year. It's not worth it.
Oftentimes less than that.
Yeah. I
Honestly,
mean,
the starting salary.
I think in New York, starting pay is like 30,
Yeah, it's
which
like
is, it's like
32
pennies in New York.
$32,000, and
Yeah.
for the risk that they're taking on a daily basis,
It's just not worth it.
wouldn't be worth it to me. I mean, definitely you
Yeah.
wouldn't see me doing that. As much as I respect our men and women in blue, I truly don't understand how anybody could justify themselves being a cop anymore. And you got to respect the fact that a lot of these folks are still just sticking with the job, because that
Yeah,
truly
absolutely. And
shows,
especially, since last year.
and that shows that they
Yeah.
truly love and care about the communities that they serve. And I think there should be a lot more respect for that. I mean, it would be so easy as a police officer nowadays to just quit. That would be the easy thing to do for any officer.
Yeah. How do you feel about ending qualified immunity?
Ending what? Sorry.
Qualified immunity. Basically, like the lawsuit would go to the officer instead of the city. It would hold the officer accountable.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I mean, it would be a negative thing, but I feel
Yeah,
like it would limit these situations.
I think you'd see a lot less people sign up for the police force.
Yeah.
But I think we're already going in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that should be the first step. Like I said, I think it should start with retraining, more education, continued education, training on what to do in those circumstances. If you're a bystander, if you're involved, if, blah, blah, blah down the line.
Yeah.
And I think that could be something that maybe gets looked at if other things don't work. What I think is going to happen that shouldn't happen is just a reactionary drastic switch. And, it's probably going to be detrimental to the officer, to the communities, to everybody if they just use a reactionary approach in some of these areas. I think it should be further educated, studied, all that stuff, and they should come up with, a realistic plan on how to solve some of these issues, because there are issues. I mean, there are a lot of cops that do use excessive force. I still don't think for the most part it's a race thing. I think it's more just a power trip for a lot of these people, but that needs to change for sure. There's definitely are flaws in our policing system.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I see what their points are, and I get it, but I feel like it would cause more problems than good
I agree.
things to happen. So, but did you see Nancy Pelosi yesterday? It was like I'm thankful for George Floyd dying for sacrificing his life or whatever for justice,
I did
which
see
is a
that.
terrible. And also George Floyd's girlfriend came out and said that.
Which, I mean, look, the one positive that came out of this whole instance is it did cause our country to have a conversation and to realize that there were still systems in place that were outdated, wrong, and that need to be looked at. But I think, thanking somebody for dying in that instance is probably not the best thing to say.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. If I would have
yeah,
been George Floyd's family, I probably would have been like, "Wow, why did you just say that?"
yeah.
Because it's not like he willingly gave his life for that, and that's the
Yeah,
sad.
and I don't think George Floyd was a hero, but he definitely opened up the conversation to work on the problem that is police
You know
brutality.
what? I agree, and it's sad that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and
Yeah,
that Chauvin used excessive force, and that he ended up passing away. I don't think anybody that's a rational, actual emotionally sound human being would disagree with that statement. Um, but no, I don't necessarily think he didn't leave his house that day saying I'm going to die for justice. So I don't
yeah,
that it was wrong to me in terms of I know if I was a family member that would rub me the wrong way.
yeah. And there was also a video of them sitting around the TV. I don't know if you saw this, but they were sitting around the TV waiting for the verdict. And when they heard the verdict, they were like celebrating, like it was like some kind of they were watching like the Super Bowl or something, and their team won. It was really embarrassing. It was really bad, cringe. Um, do you have anything else to talk about, or are you?
I mean, the only other thing I would probably touch on is Maxine Waters' comment,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. I don't think I think that was a problem, but I think they were like the jurors were scared before that because of
the only reason I think it's a problem, I don't think it was a problem in terms of the case. I don't think it had anything to do with swaying the jurors, the case. Where I look at it is the hypocritical nature of going back to the Capitol incident and
yeah, of course,
the public opinion, and the reason Trump getting impeached was, you know, he incited that violence. Um, and I think what he said on that day was much less incitement than what she said. So I think, if we're looking at everything from the same lens and looking at something unbiasedly, I think if we're going to continue on this path, that she should be removed from her office as well, because what she did was pretty much exactly like what they say Trump did, incited violence,
yeah,
called for
but
violence.
worse actually,
And yeah, and in my
yeah,
opinion, worse, but
yeah,
that's my opinion. Regardless of opinion, if you just
yeah,
simply look at this is what Trump said, this is what happened, this is what she said, this is what should happen, they
yeah,
should parallel each other. They shouldn't be in contrast. She shouldn't get off the hook for something that he was impeached for. It's
yeah.
hypocritical.
The hypocrisy is really just bleeding obvious. Like it's just really embarrassing.
And
Uh,
it's crazy to me, when Obama was president or early in Trump's term, I feel like they would almost try and disguise it in a way. And it almost feels like now the left is just willing to blatantly come out and just be hypocritical and just not care about it in any instance.
yeah, they basically came out and said because we were in the streets for a year and rioting and looting and stuff like that. That's the reason why Derek Chauvin. That was the reason why the verdict was the way it was.
And another thing about this whole case is I do not think a sitting president should come out and wish a verdict on any case of this nature, any case at all, really, but of this caliber. I mean, you look back at Richard Nixon's presidency, and he ended up, I can't remember what case it was, but he ended up saying, "Oh, I hope the verdict is blank." And they threw out the case because they said he was trying to sway the verdict and all this stuff. But then
Yeah,
yet Joe Biden comes out and says, "Oh, I hope they make the right decision. I hope that they, say he's guilty and all this stuff." It's literally just the hypocritic nature of all of this stuff. And if Trump would have said, if he was still
Oh,
president,
oh,
he would
absolutely.
have said, "Oh, I hope that he's not guilty," then wow. I mean, there would have been everybody would have been up in arms.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like with the with Biden falling down on the stairs and then Trump doing what he did at the whatever where he was at, where he was having to have assistance walking or whatever.
Yeah, down
Like they made a
the
really
ramp.
big deal about that. And then whenever Biden fell, oh well, he didn't, like it was rain, or like they blamed it on the wind. They're like, oh, it was windy outside.
And we talked about this in one of the other episodes that I was on, but no, we both truly felt bad for the
Yeah.
flack that Biden got. Like, how many times have you or I tripped up the stairs?
Oh yeah.
Tons
Yeah.
of times. It happens. But
Yeah.
the problem we both had was the hypocritical nature of they bash Trump for something that they are defending Biden for. And it's like it should be viewed in the same light. I can view it from an unbiased perspective. Do I like Biden? No. Do I think he's good for this country? Not even in the slightest.
Yeah. I
But
think
at the same time, he didn't trip because he's unfit to be president. Do I think he's unfit? Kind of. But like that's not an example. Everybody trips up the stairs.
yeah, I think his comment on the Chauvin case was inappropriate, and also Al Sharpton and Maxine Waters, they flew up there and basically, you know, just encouraged whatever, you know, right, like the violence or whatever. I
I
mean,
agree.
so, and they're gonna fly home on a private jet, and they don't have to worry about it.
That's another thing, man. Don't even get me started.
But I guess we can wrap it up here. I guess we said all. Doing anything else, closing statements or whatever.
A closing statement would just be the fact that I am genuinely worried that what we've said today will come off as racist or any of that, I think is a huge problem. The fact
Yeah,
that I am worried as a conservative of coming off as racist when I'm clearly just trying to look at it from a factual stance and saying, that I truly didn't necessarily think that it was beyond a reasonable doubt. And even then, still admitted that Derek Chauvin's a piece of shit and that he used excessive force and that he was in the wrong, but that the defense brought a case in which I believe that there might not have been beyond a reasonable doubt, that will be construed as racist. And I think that that is a huge problem with society. And I just, that if I could preface with anything, it's that just take what we're saying as just, it's looking at something from all angles. Just because you have an opinion on it, just because I have an opinion on it, doesn't mean either of us are wrong. I'm simply looking at everything that I've seen laid out and trying to see it from the view of all angles. Doesn't mean I'm a
yeah.
racist. Doesn't mean I said what he did was okay. It just means I'm looking at everything together and forming a basis of an opinion.
Do you think that's why the media picks these cases? They blow these cases up to where if you criticize it, you're automatically racist.
I think that's a huge problem. I do.
I
I
mean,
think,
it's just. I mean, somebody posted earlier about the Tony Tempo situation in Dallas.
yeah. And
I think I think it was in Dallas. Yeah.
I think it
But,
goes back to what we've talked about on the war on conservatives. If we're
yeah.
all as conservatives thought of as racist, homophobic, misogynistic, down the line, all those tag words, then we're going to be ostracized in our various communities, even especially if you live in a blue community like I do. And I think it's wrong because if somebody truly sits down with me and has a conversation, on the other side of the aisle, we oftentimes figure out that our opinions and views maybe aren't as different as we thought, and we find a lot of middle ground. But the media is swaying opinions in terms on both sides, really. Like Fox News is saying all liberals are bad, CNN is saying all conservatives are bad, and it's not allowing people to just view people as people and who they are anymore. And I think that's just going to be a huge problem going forward in our society.
Yeah. And my thoughts on the whole thing, I guess, final case or whatever, or final statement. Uh, I think that there was a lot of questions on both sides, and I think they just had to get it over with because they didn't want to drag it out any longer. And I think they just did it for their safety. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like they were both in the wrong, but
I don't blame the jurors at
yeah,
all for reaching the verdict they did, because at the end of the day, you got to think about your personal safety.
Yeah.
But I do think that the decision was probably not talked about as much as it should have been.
Yeah. Well, we can sit here all day and talk about that kind of thing, but I really had a good time on this conversation. I think it was a good podcast.
I agree.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. I love having conversations with you. It's been fun.
Yeah. You want to plug your social media again and your podcast? Just
Yeah, podcast is Life Liberty Real Talk. Like I said earlier, all about just getting your mind right and staying on the grind and how to be successful in every aspect of your life. Follow me on social media at LifeLibertyRT. And if you want to be successful and you want to dominate in every aspect of life, give me a listen.
sounds good. I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you later, brother.
All right. See you.